So I'm just going to talk for a moment about the importance of shame. Okay, so when you Google shame and humility, one of the responses is about pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. And true humility is the only antidote to shame. Now, yeah, this may be true. If you don't want to feel shame, then be a little bit more humble and perhaps you won't have to feel shame. So, yeah, all right, it's an antidote to shame. But I think more importantly, shame is the antidote to so much wrongs and is the path and the paving stones for being a more humble person, to experiencing and expressing more humility. So, this is very important when it comes to politics because, as we saw with Trump, someone who doesn't have shame, who cannot feel shame, because perhaps they're a narcissist, because they only care about themselves and their own profit and their own power, is just unwilling ever to be humble, unable perhaps ever to be humble. And that is a road to destruction of democracy because you must have some humility. You must approach things with some humility in order to connect with others, to have good conversation, to come to respect the facts and to come to an understanding with others and respect democracy and work within the bounds of democracy, work within the bounds of law and cooperate with others and find good answers to questions that people can agree on. And you just can't have a democratic society if people don't act in that way. And this is a big problem right now in America because one of the two political parties has decided that they just don't want to bother with things like the things I just described, and they will act shamelessly. They will lie and just overturn norms and just throw out all of the basic foundations of democracy. And if they could feel shame, then they wouldn't do those things. And then it's not only the politicians, it's also the people. So if people who initially supported Trump felt shame when they saw him do some of the things that he did, then they wouldn't support him any longer. But they also have thrown out things like shame and humility. And I think it's also there's many reasons for it, and things always happen at a particular point in time. So Trump could not have won at a different point in time, and this could be for many reasons, but in part because they haven't been receiving things from government in a long time and have turned against government, have become angry about cultural changes, and so on. But if his supporters could feel shame when they saw that he was doing crude things, when they found out crude things he had said and done in the past, if they could feel a bit of humility about perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps he's lying, but without shame, there is no humility, probably, or at least there's a lot less humility. There's no reason to be humble if you don't feel shame. So these things are very tied together, and it is also cultural. If you look at the difference between the US and the UK culturally, one of the big differences is that in the UK, people are much more humble. When they call into a radio station, they don't start shouting and they don't just assume they know all of the answers. They feel the need to be humble and to make it very clear that they might be wrong and be very precise and be very open to being challenged, to being told, actually, you're wrong about this. There's just a lot more humility. And probably that's because, there would be some shame in sounding like an American, sounding like a loudmouth. So it is very important for democracy that Americans begin to feel a bit of shame and be a bit more humble. That's it. Just my thoughts.